You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I am your host this week, Amy, and I've got with me Kelvin, Christos, and Kristin. Hello, hello, Kelvin. How are you doing this week?
I'm very happy to be here, Amy. I've been in London this weekend visiting some friends. So it's getting to that point of the year where you do all of your friends, like the Christmas visit for everybody. So this was the London gays who got some of our attention this weekend. And I am fresh out of the car. I've been home 10 minutes. So
oh my gosh.
And the house is freezing. So I put on a big fleece, logged on the computer. I had to ask special permission to exceed the Warp 5 limit so I could get here on time. But yeah, it's lovely to see all your faces.
Oh my goodness. It is that time of year. I also yesterday was at my Vegas Trek local group and we had our little Christmas party. So very good. And Christos, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. And Kelvin, I saw all yours and James' pictures, and I was like, who are all these London cuties? I kind of was having a little bit of FOMO.
Oh, well, you might meet them if I get them to come to Sitges while we're there next year.
Oh,
perfect.
goodness.
Perfect. Bring them along. The more, the merrier.
And Kristin, my love. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm tired, but this morning I'm good. I woke up and we were gifted with a beautiful white blanket of snow outside.
Oh.
So it is cheery and Christmassy right now. And I am, oh, Christos, your face. That's why you live in California.
I left all that.
Yeah.
1 out of 4 got snow. Okay, that's Kristin.
And I'm not upset about it. So yeah, things are okay this morning.
Oh my goodness. Well, Christos, you were first to present me with the Section 31 official trailer. So I'm going to turn it over to you. What did you think of this amazing trailer?
So first off, I was walking around the mall yesterday when my phone blew up, and I literally like stepped over to the side. I didn't even have ear pods, and I'm watching this trailer on my phone. So but then I have since come
you
home.
were that
and
person.
I was that. That's why I'm saying I was that person. I broke my own rules. But as soon as I came home, I watched it on my big television too. But can I just say that this trailer has given me from being just hopeful that we were going to have a good movie to being really, 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 really excited for this movie. I think we were all feeling didn't even look like a Star Trek trailer for the one we got over the summer. And there was all this mention of Starfleet and why Rachel Garrett was there. And we see the comm badge, and we saw some ships and things like that. So it really got me excited.
Yes. Kristin, did you have a chance to watch it?
I saw it advertised, and for some reason I was like, oh, I don't want any spoilers.
Mm.
Oh.
And I was like, but I don't know if I want to watch it or if I want to go in completely blind and be fully surprised by what I see.
Good call. I know there's people out there that love just being surprised and just don't want to see those trailers. So
yeah,
yes.
I don't want any expectations. I don't want any preconceived notions about anything. I just want to go in, bask in the glory that is Michelle Yeoh, and appreciate that there's a new Star Trek movie hitting the airwaves.
Yeah.
And
January 24th. Woo-hoo.
It's so close.
I know, yes.
Kelvin,
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if it's an effect of me watching it at 1 o'clock this morning, quite worse for wear. But I still don't know what the movie's going to be about. I still really don't understand the plot other than plot Michelle Yeoh appeared in the past from Discovery and something about Section 31. Now, I don't know if that's a really good thing in terms of building excitement or whether it's kind of the trailer not doing its job. It just looks like a big boom boom pow to me, like film. I am excited, but I don't think I've got Christos level excitement just yet.
Honey, I think you need to get some rest and watch again. Because I disagree with what you just said. I feel like I do have an idea of what it's about and why they're coming to her and et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to give too much away because of Kristin, but yeah. I feel like I have a really good idea of what's going on because of the trailer. Amy, you're nodding your head.
Maybe I will get a trailer breakdown somewhere online and I'll revisit this next week then maybe.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel like I've got a better idea. Again, I'll try not to spoil it, but like with her, I guess my question was, where does she fit into my headcanon of what I believe Starfleet to be and how they should act? And I'm still trying to wrap my head around Section 31. But this trailer, at least for me, put me at ease where it's like, okay, I see her fitting in. She's still a wild child, but she's gonna, at least I feel more comfortable that she's in and has accepted what is Starfleet.
Yeah. Really a couple interesting things. Getting other people's point of views. Well, first off, I love that I was expecting this Academy Award winner, Michelle Yeoh, of course, right there in the credit. But so I sent this over to my bestie, who's a big Trekkie, but the last couple of years he's been really busy, and so got married, has blah blah blah. So he doesn't keep up with the shows. So I sent this over to the group, and of course, it's like the instant reaction was, "Oh, Michelle Yeoh, I'm going to watch this." So there you go. It's already appealing to people, and maybe bringing them that have kind of checked out for whatever reason. But then I even said to him, "Hey, it's not even a series; it's a movie," because he thought it was a series. And he's like, "Oh my God, even better! They should just do more of these things. People are busy. I can tune in for a movie and then move on. But series take commitment. So there you go. Some perspective from people who maybe aren't as in it as the four of us."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like that you've just coined a phrase there as well. So is trekked out like checked out on Star Trek? Fabulous.
It's what I did during about season 2 of Enterprise. But I came back.
The best of us sometimes need a quick little break. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Well, let's get to today's topic. Kelvin, you want to introduce it?
I would love to. So today we are continuing with our Architects series, and we're on part 5. And we are going to be focusing on the Next Generation screenwriter and Voyager producer and showrunner, Jeri Taylor. And it is a little bit of a tribute, as I'm sure everybody who's listening will know. Jeri did sadly pass away earlier this year.
Yeah, so she was born June 30th, 1938 in Evansville, Indiana. And then passed away October 24th of this year in California at the age of 86. When doing the research and reading her tribute, since it was so recent of her passing, I thought it would be nice for us to hear what other people in Star Trek have said about her at the time of her passing. And I'd like to read what Roxanne Dawson, she plays B'Elanna Torres, and she says, "I am heartbroken to hear of the passing of Jeri Taylor. Not only was her contribution to Voyager remarkable, but she was unmistakably the female voice of Voyager. I know my journey, both on the show and beyond, is completely affected by her presence, her talent, and her vision. She was the first person I spoke to about wanting to direct, and with her support and guidance, my life was changed. I am deeply saddened by her passing, but her infectious, joyful outlook on life will continue to inspire me. My heart and prayers are with her family," end quote. And I did not know that she was the first person that Roxanne Dawson talked to about becoming a director. And now look at her. She's like a directing queen, just out there busy, busy, busy. So what an amazing tribute.
I think it just shows that she thought Jeri was a safe space to talk to, right? You can confide and get that feedback and be vulnerable and, hey, not put yourself, she's getting that that little push that she probably needed to go say, hey, I want to do this. And that's amazing.
But also breaking through as well as a woman in a man's world, in a man's industry, with achieving what she achieved and inspiring Roxanne, and Roxanne saying, I want to do what you've done. It's amazing in itself. But just listening to that, I'd love someone to say something about me like that when I die.
Yes.
That's the dream. It's such a beautiful tribute.
I always love the idea that empowered women empower women.
Mm.
And so those women who have been fortunate enough to achieve something remarkable and have been able to break through different barriers, especially for Jeri Taylor, with, you know, her doing it quite early at a time when it was not easy, that she then passed that benefit along by all of the work that she did, obvious through what Roseanne just said about her. And again, Kelvin, I agree. I can only hope that one day somebody would say something like this about me.
It's definitely that idea of pay it forward, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kind of dovetail to our previous architect that we covered, Brannon Braga. And he said that Jeri, was a great writer and showrunner. And to me, a cherished mentor. Jeri was generous with her wisdom and her time. She nurtured an entire staff of young writers, which is a testament to her patience. I would not have a career without Jeri's intricate guidance. She taught us all so much. Her memory will live on in many ways, but perhaps most of all in the character of Captain Janeway, who reflected the best dimensions of Jeri herself. Jeri Taylor, we were lucky to know you.
I love hearing people like pay tribute to their teachers, their mentors. Like, it just warms my heart. I'm like, okay, we can do this. We can make the world a better place. And yeah, look at Brannon Braga having that nurturing writer's room. You know, that would be so amazing to experience that, because you just hear so many times when the writer's room is not a nice place to be in.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to put one forth ad lib from memory here without it being on here, but I was doing some watching and reading on it myself, and I was reading a really nice tribute from Aaron Watke about Jeri Taylor, and he talked about how he learned to write scripts and because of her, and it was because she donated all of her papers to the University of Indiana, I believe. So he went and looked at all her scripts, and all of her handwritten notes were on those scripts. And he basically taught him how to write. So I'd like to think that maybe she also had a hand in forming Star Trek Prodigy as well, as a sequel to Voyager anyway, but still, one of the creators took that inspiration from, basically looking at what she did and learning.
Wow. Yeah.
Kate Mulgrew, of course, would have a lot of feels about Jeri Taylor. And she said, Jeri Taylor was responsible in large part for changing my life. She was elegant, erudite, and fiercely opinionated. She wanted Kathryn Janeway to be a significant part of her legacy, and I think there is no doubt that in that endeavor she succeeded. I owe her a debt of gratitude. May she rest in peace.
Oh,
beautiful words.
Yes. Well, as you mentioned, Christos, she did her undergrads at Indiana University and got her master's in arts and English at Cal State. And you're right, I did read that she had donated all of her scripts and those notes. So yeah, future screenwriters can say, oh, back in the day, this is how we do it, or how they did it. I'm sure. But she started her career as a screenwriter and worked on shows like Little House on the Prairie and The Incredible Hulk, which I watched both of those.
Just one here.
And then she moved to producer and director for Quincy M.E. and Jake the Fat Man. And it was from that start with Quincy M.E. that she was brought into the writer's room at Star Trek Next Generation brought in by Lee Sheldon, who worked with her at Quincy ME.
Could I
I
just
just want-
ask, what the hell is Jake the Fat Man? That
It-
clearly
Oh,
didn't.
it was an awful direct, like kind of investigative type show, and Jake was a fat man. And
In the
it's a show-
South.
It was called Jake and the Fat Man, and so Jake
I don't.
was so Jake was just a district attorney. Oh no. The district attorney was the Fat Man McCabe, and he solves cases with the help of his easygoing private investigator partner, Jake Stiles.
Yeah, a show that probably would not get made today.
No.
Yeah.
I want to give a quick shout out though to last week's episode. We talked about this very topic. Our episode last week was on suspicions, and that was written in kind of like a tribute to Cherry because they wanted to make a Quincy type episode. It was a medical show, investigative medical show, and they wanted to write an episode like that for Beverly. So Jeri had that. I think Jeri's influence on that getting written.
Hmm.
And if any of the listeners have never watched Quincy, go out and see if you can stream a few episodes. It's a very entertaining show.
Yeah, I remember seeing it a couple times.
Yes.
I don't think it was a, must-see TV.
I think my
No,
dad
but
watched it.
it was must see in my house. My parents had Quincy on every time.
Oh,
aired.
wow. So, I feel like she has had this career that she has just moved up in short amount of time because she was brought into TNG, and just after 2 years, she was brought in as showrunner for the final season of TNG. So she got on fourth season. By seventh, she was the showrunner. Like, she is moving up. So that definitely explains her competency and effectiveness as in the writer's room. She wrote a lot of episodes for Star Trek Next Generation. And we're just going to run through, pick out some highlights and some episodes that she has written. It's, when you're showrunner, you're just sort of responsible for them all. But one that I wanted to highlight was she's screenwriter for The Drumhead. And this was a script that she has said over and over that she was most proud of. And we all love The Drumhead, which I believe next week we will be talking about. So hang on for that.
The one that I always loved was Unification. And that, of course, was the return of Spock with Leonard Nimoy. And because again, I always talk about this, how I enjoy where they have little Easter eggs and pull in all the other information from other parts of the series. And as soon as he said, I take responsibility for what happened when we tried to pursue peace with the Klingons. And I was like, I'm this little girl, I'm like, that's Star Trek 6. He's talking about Star Trek 6. And my dad is like, yes, that's what he's talking about. I think the first time I watched these Unification Part 1 and 2, I pulled out my VHS of Star Trek 6, pulled out the VCR, and I just basked in that joy. So that is one of my favorite two-parters of all of Star Trek is that Unification. So
yeah.
And she wrote a novelization for that she wrote 3 books, and one of them was the novelization of Unification. She loved that. Yeah.
I think I own that book and I've never read it. I just kind of bought it for the shelf, but maybe I'll have to give it a read. If she wrote it, there's probably a little bit more detail in there.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to call out The Wounded because it's the episode that introduced the Cardassians. Although the story was not her original idea. She wrote the teleplay, but there's a lot there because you're just taking an idea and then fleshing it out into a full episode. So if you think about it, not only did she have a lot to do with the Cardassian race, which had to basically sets up Deep Space Nine, but then she also was one of the creators of Voyager. So she was an architect for sure.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because she had actually so little to do with Deep Space Nine holistically, but there you go. Her very first job introduced the main antagonists of the series. So I love that. Just sprinkled a little bit of Deep Space Nine there.
And I think it's so great because how they introduce a race sets a very important tone. And for example, you know, how TNG introduced the Ferengi did not land.
Right.
But how they introduced the Cardassians did land and made them very intriguing to the watcher. And I appreciate watching the lore behind them really get fleshed out through Deep Space Nine.
And then Jeri, we're talking about what she introduced, but you know, she carefully handled Will Wheaton's exit from regular status on TNG in the episode Final Mission, which I think it's an episode that's aged really well. Final Mission. It's not one of my go-tos, but when I do watch it, I really enjoy it. And I think Will did a great job, and it was a great story as well. And it was a real Wesley solves a problem. Oh, love it.
Very classic Wesley.
Yeah.
But also when Picard starts talking to him about being so excited for the journey he's going on and starting, I can't help but kind of feel for Picard in that moment. Not only does he think that his life is winding up in that cave, but it's also, you know, sometimes nostalgia is hard to deal with as you get older and you look back and then you look at the next generation come up and you're like, I'm so happy for you, but if I could live my life over and relive the joy of carefree nature sometimes that we have in our youths.
I wouldn't mind calling out one of the other episodes there in the list of TNG, and that's The Outcast. I'm sure Christos will agree that, you know, the gays, we have limited storylines to identify and connect with. And The Outcast was probably one of the closest things that we had to a LGBT episode back in the day. Yeah. So for Jeri to have written that and introduced the Janai and the androgynous species, she really did a service to our community there. So I'd like to tip my hat and say thanks, Jeri, for that one.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to piggyback on that, Kristin and I were kind of hard on The Outcast last week a little bit, but it did break some really new ground. And, you know, even though it may have not been landed as completely as well as it could have, kudos for being brave, you know, in the early 90s for Star Trek to bring that to the front. If we're calling out other Jeri Taylor episodes, I'd like to call out Descent, because I actually took some of these that Amy put in here and I did some reading over the last day. And so I was reading up on Descent a little bit, and the story was all broke the prior season, right? And they didn't even have a script for season 2, typical for Star Trek, for the part 2 going into the next year. So they didn't even know how they were going to finish it up. And I think in their conversations, there wasn't even supposed to be this whole big B plot on the Enterprise with Crusher and characters, you know, and the Tate character was supposed to be Barclay, but they couldn't get him. And it didn't quite make sense, and they wanted to take it just, the idea got more and more interesting the more they worked on it, and it suddenly went from not really even supposed to being part of it to becoming like this equal 50-50 plot of this part 2. And I always say that I think it was that episode in one way, shape, or another that kind of really showed that a female captain would be viable in Star Trek.
And I also think that it shows the problem solving that the crew can do and the training that they get to react to situations on the turn of a dime, which also really lends to the overall idea of Voyager, right? Oh no, we've been shot how many ever thousands of light years away. What do we do now? But they have that training, and that's something Janeway very much stuck with. And I think we saw that with Beverly and Descent, where she's like, here's what we're going to do. But then Tate showing that the training and being so new out of Starfleet Academy helped her be so successful in this episode.
One episode I would like to call out is Violations. And I know that is a touchy topic and episode to discuss. And I've done a deep dive into Troy and her getting violated. But this episode really was a wake up call, because at that time there were a lot of this date rape drugs and like just calling out that women are getting raped, and it was a lot. And I think just bringing awareness and having those tough discussions is important. And I think she takes her role and her influence seriously. And I applaud her for writing these amazing scripts.
I also think it's important to point out that this brings attention to the fact that not all abuse has to be physical.
Mm-hmm.
That emotional abuse is a very real thing when you start to mess with a person's mind and tear down their self-esteem and make them feel trapped. And, just it doesn't always have to be about a punch or that type of thing, or a sexual abuse. That mental abuse can be just as impactful and traumatizing to the victim.
And the manipulation that,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting when you take topics like the episode Violations, or to Kelvin's point, the Outcast, bring in, the Drumhead, or Chain of Command Part 2, which deals so much in the idea of torture and human rights and things like that. And things like, I remember Amnesty International making a big deal about that episode, Chain of Command Part 2, when it came out, because that was a group in high school and that was being talked about. So Jeri Taylor bringing all of these really heavy, important topics and kind of weaving it in there. And they always say Star Trek is a mirror for today's society. And these are all really good examples of talking about very serious subjects, but in the realm of our Star Trek lore.
Oh my gosh. So well said, Christos. Oh.
And speaking of Chain of Command, I just want to quickly say too, this is where we see a huge development in Troy's storyline. Right? It's where she finally is, Marina had been fighting forever to be in a normal uniform and had wanted her character to be taken more seriously. And we see that happen in Chain of Command, where it's like, everyone has such strong opinions on Jellicoe, but in the end, he did what needed to be done. And I think that he pushed the crew outside of their comfort zone into their growth zone and allowed a lot of development to take place, while he himself also was humbled at the end. But I think that the badassery that we see of Troy from that point on to the end of the series was thanks to the writing that happened in Chain of Command.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. So she did have 3 writing credits on Deep Space Nine. But like you said, it's just not that much in Deep Space Nine, because then she jumped to Voyager, because after Generations, they were developing Voyager with Berman and Pillar. So the 3 episodes she has writing credit for is The Homecoming, The Maquis Part 1, and Part 2.
How important, though, this is almost my sweet spot, because this is TNG, DS9, and Voyager all coming, and the Maquis is what links them all, starting in TNG, going into DS9, and then obviously the start of Voyager. So for Jeri to be so instrumental in the creation of the Maquis storyline as that thread to link all 3 series together is, that first golden age of Star Trek in the Berman era, this 1996, 95. Oh, yeah, we've just got so much to be grateful for Jeri.
Yeah. It's really obvious here too that first off, this would have come from Jeri, because first off, Homecoming, I found out in my research, was written to be a TNG script, and it was supposed to be done, but they're like, no, this works better on DS9. But those characters played out, so it was modified to fit the DS9 cast. So that's interesting in itself. And then, of course, the Maquis come from are introduced in TNG with the Roe episode. So who better to continue that on? And Kelvin, I love what you said there, because when season 6 was going on TNG, and then DS9 started and they were overlapping, I only wish there was more crossover. I loved how the stories were influencing each other. And, I would just love to see the more crossover. In fact, maybe DS9 would have gotten more popular quicker had there been more crossover. I don't know, but I don't know. You're right. That is a golden age of Trek. That was from the beginning of DS9 to Voyager starting, and all this stuff just overlapped. And you had, it was like the first multiverse, right? Or
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you know which character I think is so pivotal and like under acknowledged? It's actually Gulliver, the non-good cat Cardassian, who's very pivotal to all the Maquis storylines. He started in Journey's End on the Dorvan 5 Wesley episode. And then he was in the Maquis Part 1 and Part 2. And then he was in Preemptive Strike. And then he was in the opening scene in Voyager, chasing the Vol'jin through the Badlands. So he's the real connection of the Maquis storylines through all of them. I'm guilty of just doing a rewatch of all these. That's why it's so fresh. But yeah, I was like, Richard Poe, Gulliver, he's the real winner here.
So after Pillar stepped back at the end of the second season, so Jeri then became showrunner until the end of fourth season in 1998, where she decided to retire, but she wasn't really done because she worked as a creative consultant for the last 3 seasons. And Jeri Taylor, very huge part for developing and creating Captain Kathryn Janeway, the first female captain and lead. So I wanted us, because Captain Janeway is huge. Just one of, this golden age captain. So I thought to pay tribute to Jeri is for each of us to share, how Janeway has impacted our life and what we have learned from her. Kristin, I'd like to start with you.
Seeing Janeway come on in 95, I was 11. And I was at a point where I was really trying to figure out how to be a woman and how to grow up as a female in society. And it was challenging. And it was, the role models that we had at that time were polarizing. Because it seemed you either had to pick one, right? You could either be the badass Ripleys from Alien, or you were just goofy Cher Horowitzes from Clueless. So to see somebody like Janeway show up, and she's got a relationship, she's looking forward to the birth of her puppies, but yet she has all of these high STEM degrees and training and education, and she's in a place of leadership over a ton of people. It showed that you can bring together these two ends of being a woman, and like the fact that we're told you have to be one or another is in fact a false dichotomy, that you can have both of those areas of strength in you together, and that there is time to fluctuate between what type of femininity you want to express today. And I think it just really helped as a role model that I had never seen on TV before. And I don't know how well it's been replicated since. So I still look back at Janeway as a point of being a role model to me today.
Great. Yeah. Christos.
This is a tough one, but I think I got it here. So for me, of course, everyone knows I love Beverly Crusher. But if you think about why I love Beverly Crusher, smart, competent woman. I love it. You said STEM there, Kristin. And, for me, my Beverly had gone away. TNG was over, blah, blah, blah. And then this show comes along called Voyager and introduces Kate Mulgrew as Captain Janeway. And I only knew Kate Mulgrew from a 3-parter of Cheers prior to that. But here she comes, and smart, competent. I mean, of course, Kate Mulgrew's voice alone is captivating and will suck you in. And just having her written as this smart and in charge leader who also, to your point, Kristin, has this vulnerable side to her. She's still a lady. She's still a woman. But, that's never overshadowing, her role as the leader. And you go through 7 seasons of Voyager with her, and for me, she never stopped being my favorite character on that show because and she was dynamic, and her character was ever changing and being challenged, and watching her being steadfast to her morals and trying to keep to the Prime Directive and keep not become that other ship. I always lose these words when I want them. What's the other? Come on, Kelvin. When the other ransom, the Equinox, the Equinox being a mirror for what could have happened to Voyager, and it didn't happen to Voyager because of. And of course, Janeway becomes an admiral because she did, for the most part. I mean, of course, there were some questionable calls in there, but at the end of the day, she still kind of kept her ship a Starfleet ship for all those years. And I'm just going to give you my favorite Janeway quote from the whole 7, and I'm just coming from memory, but it's from the Omega Directive, and it's just the way she says it. It's not even an important quote, but it's like, the Prime Directive has been rescinded for the duration of this mission. And the way she says that, it's just like so perfect. I love it.
Oh, goodness. Love it. Yes. Kelvin.
I find it interesting that we're reflecting on something from 30 years ago. And so I also get to reflect on how I felt about it 30 years ago as a young teenager, and now as an old man. I regretfully have to say that Kate Mulgrew being cast as the first female lead of a Star Trek series didn't really resonate with me, didn't matter. I didn't see it. There was no kind of representation aspect to me. I was just fascinated by learning a new character. Now, in a weird way, that's a good thing because I just thought it's just a new character. Who cares if it's a woman? Now, clearly, now as an adult, it was a huge deal and it really, really matters. But as a kid, it was just more of something for me to consume that was different. I clearly gravitated towards Janeway because it's a strong female lead in a show, which, hello. I do want to ask a question, though, because when I have conversations with friends and colleagues who are women in the workplace in senior positions, they have either burnt out or put themselves under so much pressure because they try to be the perfect mother, the perfect person at work, and there's no group conversation of it's fine not to be perfect, to be able to struggle in various aspects of your life or both, because you can't do everything so perfectly. Nobody's perfect. Was the fact that Janeway as portrayed as so perfect and strong in them first 3 seasons before that humor developed with the Bob, did that put pressure on women? Was it necessarily the best thing to see this amazing together character? Is it better to have flawed and vulnerable characters that people can relate with a little bit more? And that's something that I reflect on with Janeway. Was she too perfect?
I think that sort of bleeds into what I was going to say about Janeway, in that you've got a female expectation of society, like you're going to be the mother, you're going to be the housekeeper, you're going to run everything. Here's your lane. And then you've got men in the corporate, in the work world. So Janeway now in the 80s and the 90s, we're getting women who have done amazing jobs as housekeeper, and so continue to have that expectation, but then now take it into the work world. And now they're having to be perfect in the work world. And that's why I love Janeway at that time, who came out in 95. I was 22. I had lived a life, like I feel, I was at university. I'd finished high school. I had seen television, and the women, if they were in the work world, they were bitches. They were erratic. They were emotional. They were irrational. And it's like, so you had to be perfect to fit in this man's world. And I feel like Janeway did that so perfectly that it allowed society to say, oh, she can do this corporate world effectively. And I think it was just that time where it's like the idea that it's going to be okay if a woman is a CEO. Like that's what I feel Janeway brought to society. And when you look at it, that really is Jeri Taylor. And how much I have connected Janeway with Kate Mulgrew, I'm now, because of this research, like connecting Janeway with Jeri Taylor.
I really connect Janeway and Jeri Taylor together. It's almost like the character is the embodiment of Jeri. It might be jumping subjects a little bit, and forgive me for not doing my research, but I'm curious about the timing of Jeri's retirement. Was it prompted maybe by the introduction of our other favorite Jeri? And we all know about the conflict and disagreement that Kate Mulgrew said, I have spent the last 3 years portraying women in a certain light, and here we go and cast the Dolly Bird, which almost undermines a lot of this. So I'm not putting it out there that Jeri Taylor protested that much that she took early retirement and left, but I as much as I love Seven of Nine, she's literally my top 3 favorite Star Trek characters ever. I really agree with Kate Mulgrew's comments about, is this destroying a lot of the work that I've done for women's representation on Star Trek? And again, that's because of Jeri Taylor. So yeah.
I mean,
it stings a little.
And it's so funny too, because the whole 7 of 9 debacle and Jeri Ryan, I mean, it could have just been so easily solved by not putting her in that cat suit.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
There we go.
All that's the only bad, it was just the costuming. The character is fine. Everything else is fine. The development, it was just that uniform choice that make no sense at all. Also calling back a little bit to what we were saying there in terms of can a woman do this? I said, the one thing I thought was a little bit, maybe it's not completely fair and on par to compare Janeway to any other woman, is that, with Janeway, of course, she had a boyfriend, fiance, but they're separated. He's not on the ship. And, in fact, in many ways, she's separated from him completely in the first episode. And then there's no children. So Janeway's not a mother and she's not a wife. And so we don't necessarily get to make that direct one-on-one comparison to a working woman. So there's a little,
true.
In fact, if anything, it could be to the detriment of portraying that the only way you can be this in charge is to give up the family life.
But I would argue that with Kes, she took on a very maternal role with her.
Yeah.
And I understand that as somebody myself who has no children by choice. There are young women in my life that I have they don't have great relationships with their mothers, or they're looking for somebody maybe closer to their age that they can talk to. And I talk to them about my experiences that the one young woman who she's getting married next year, and she's really worried about what's going to happen because she too doesn't want to have children. So I can come to her as a woman in my 40s and say, these are my experiences and this is the support I'm willing to offer you as almost a mother figure. And then other young women who are coming up in sort of like the punk and metal scene and playing guitar, and they're feeling, they're trying to grapple with their femininity as not your classically defined femininity. And so I'm mentoring them through that. And I just feel like that's very much what Janeway did with Cass. And she showed that she has that inside her right up until Cass leaves Voyager. Especially in what was the Elogium. As cringy as that episode is, Janeway was amazing to Cass. And I just think it shows a different type of way to have impact on the next generation that does not necessarily mean you have to give birth to the next generation. There's a lot of people out there who can still use a chosen family in a different way. And I think the Voyager very much showed the strength of a chosen family.
That's very well said.
I don't think I know you mentioned earlier about her writing unification. I think one of the very first Star Trek novels that I read was the Pathways novel, which is the backstory of all of the Voyager characters, except the Doctor. He didn't have one. And I love that. And putting Seven of Nine to the side and focusing on those three female characters that she started Voyager with Kes and B'Elanna and Janeway, she really wrote some really great characters there. And I know Kes doesn't get maybe the most amount of love that she deserves, but the character was new, it was fresh, it was interesting, and I even really liked how Jennifer played her as well. But B'Elanna has always been one of my favorite Voyager characters because of this strength and inner turmoil, and having to navigate those two sides of your volatility and be successful and really good at what you do while you're doing it. Yeah, just really, really fully formed characters. I remember Voyager starting and thinking, from the first few episodes, I know these characters already. It wasn't a slow burn with Voyager. It went straight in, and it was magnificent from season 1.
Very true.
Yeah.
We went through the TNG episodes earlier of Jeri Taylor's, and when we were talking about Brannon Braga in the Architect series, I was really interested to hear he was from Bozeman, Montana, so that's the reason he chose that for First Contact. And when you just said earlier that she's Jeri Taylor's from Evansville, my Rolodex just went off and went, the episode The 37s, the character who's the human on that show was John Evansville, and he was one of the ones in the silver suits with the gun who were fighting from the Briori. So I just love that the writers just put little personal details of their lives, scripts and characters and places.
And I would say I remember being so excited about the 37th. I really, really enjoyed that episode. It's one of my favorites for Voyager still after all these years, including not just for the Amelia Earhart thing, because that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
But, Voyager lands in that episode, and that's pretty cool. So there's so many cool elements to that episode. And I just, like, to your point, I know that was filmed for season 1, and I think it kicked off season 2. But it's still like, wow, this show was hitting it from the beginning. It didn't need to warm up.
Yeah.
Also, that will forever for me be the end of season 1 cliffhanger. The UK those them 4 crossover holdover episodes. We heard them in production order, not air order. So it's the season 1 end of season for me, and always will be.
And just also going back to the choice of who were found and who were present in the 37 and having Amelia Earhart there, I wonder if Amelia was to Jeri what Jeri kind of is to us, right? Like a groundbreaking woman who sort of went into a place that was male dominated and did her thing. And I know this has nothing to do with Star Trek, but one of my other favorite shows, it's my comfort show, is Bob's Burgers. And in one of their later seasons, I think it's season 13, the final episode is called Amelia. And it's where Louise, the little girl with the pink bunny ears, has to pick a hero and do a report. And she picks Amelia. And she talks a lot about how, she demonstrates that just because her mission didn't end as she thought it was going to be should not negate all the work that she did in her life to get up to that point. And she kind of like does this whole thing about, maybe just as she was getting too tired to keep swimming, a ship came and picked them up and they flew off to space. And I was like, I hope Louise Belcher goes and watches the episode of Voyager 37, because this answers all the questions about Amelia Earhart for you. And it gives it a happy ending. So if anyone's wanting to sort of see that, go watch that episode. It is adorable. It's on Disney Plus. Try not to cry.
Very good. Well, any last final thoughts about Jeri Taylor before we end today? We said what we wanted to say.
I think for me, just it's really simple. I think I owe, the whole 1991 and on love of Star Trek. I don't think it would ever be the same without having her involvement. So, and considering what a big part of my life Star Trek still is today, and these episodes that we're talking about, I can't, you can't say that this woman did not have a huge impact on my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Christos, same, and I think that certain people, the architects of this show, and this is why this is one of my favorite
series,
the topics that we do, is because when we get to do these deep dives and you look at the list of the episodes that this person was in, and you're like, these are some of my favorite episodes, and you can never quite figure out why this was. And then you see the running theme through it is this person behind it. So in Jeri's case, I always felt that the characters were fleshed out in such a meaningful and in-depth way. And I'm I wonder if that's because even though Jeri was in a male-dominated place, like the writer's room, she allowed that sensitivity that she has as a woman, and that is supposed to be a detriment to us, and she made it her strength.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. 2 episodes enter the arena, 1 comes out victorious. Join hosts Joe and Kevin and a guest as they debate which should win the Batleth battle. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through the Star Trek cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam Aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissy and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissy and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into beta canon with Peter, host of the online Trek Book Club on Twitter, and his new companion, Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Whether you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The View Screen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with Season 2 starting in September for a 10-week run. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with a LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the T-Bev. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind with monthly script readings, Let's Fly, a Discovery reaction show, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. Kristin, what are we talking about next week?
Next week's episode is going to be Courtroom Drama Part 2. We kind of teased about it earlier in the episode. We are reviewing The Drumhead. So Jeri's staying with us again for one more week, and we get to look at that banger of an episode.
Mm-hmm.
We all get to hate on Admiral Norma Settee.
You know what? Let's. Girlfriend.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, or on our Discord server to continue our discussion there. You can also reach us at AllGoodPod on Bluesky. Please follow the network on Bluesky and Instagram at BQN Podcasts. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching the master feed, and the links can be found in the show notes. So, Kristin, where can people find you when you're not taking the ship to Blue Alert to land for the first time on a planet?
You know what? If there's coffee in that nebula, I will land the plane or the Voyager wherever it needs to land. You can find me on Instagram at kstrats. I am, of course, on Facebook under the BQN Network. And I am on Reddit at user Garrick's Fan Club. And Christos, where can people find you when you're not going back in time to redress Jeri Ryan in the first few episodes of 7 of 9?
Yes, we're going to go do that makeover, at least in my head canon. You can find me on Instagram and Bluesky at GreekGeekSD, and also on Instagram at What's the T-Bab, which is kind of growing really fast, that my Instagram channel over there. So I'm not sure what I'm doing right over there, but hey, find me over there. And you can also find me on What's the T-Bab and in the BQN Collective on Facebook and in our Discord server. We're just everywhere, man. It's pretty cool. And Amy, where can people find you when you are not being defrosted after spending 400 years in cryostasis?
Oh my goodness. Well, you can find me here on the network. We're co-hosting Union Federation, where we cover new Star Trek and the Orville. So that's pretty fun. You can find me on Bluesky at BQN Podcasts and in our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, and on the Discord server. And Kelvin, where can people find you when you're hanging out in the sweet spot of Jeri Taylor land between TNG, DS9, and Voyager?
Oh, lovely. You can find me in the BQN Collective Facebook group, or you can come and chat with me directly on the socials at Kelvin's Timeline.
Here at BQN, we will never make you listen to an ad. And if you'd like to help us keep our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join our Hive Mind reaction show, script readings, and enjoy our special patron-only shows of It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details.
Now, if becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leaving us a star rating and written review. And that will really help others to find the show.
At this time, we would like to thank our very own associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and JJ Seastrum. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and Mark White for our show brand artwork. Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us
as we search out
all good things.